And I'm back, better and angrier than ever. Where did I go? And why am I back? And what is Improvisations on the Ledge anyway? And that was the wrong camera. I am back indeed, and what this goes to show is two things. One, even though I worked on setting up this technology for quite some time, still when you finally go live with no people watching live, something will go wrong. And it did. That scene was supposed to automatically go to this camera. There are three here. Anyway, I'm back, and this is the first run of the first episode. There will be several. This is proof of concept time. So I want to answer the last question first. What is Improvisations on the Ledge? It has a history, even though this is the actual first live episode. It does have a history, but I'll get into that in a bit. Let's start with the overall concept. I hate to have to do a show where I have to explain the show, but I feel it behooves me to kind of give a little background on why I'm doing it, what it's about. Think of it, Improvisations on the Ledge, as a highly structured, free improvisation. That may seem to be a contradiction in terms. Isn't free improvisation loosely structured? It can be. It's not my way of doing things and never has been. I'm a highly thematic person. Once I get stuck on an idea, once an idea is played or spoken by me, it becomes the thing upon which I operate. So, Improvisations on the Ledge is just that, highly structured free improvisation. Now, in this case, in this introductory episode in which I'm explaining what the show is about, I'm giving a setup for the entire series. And as I said, the premise is highly structured free improvisation. But what does that mean? In this case, it means that I do a lot of preparation on the pre-production side, and then when it's time to run the show, I just go for it, particularly with playing, but also speaking. You'll see that there were a lot of images and videos to start with. I play along with those or ignore them, but they're all sequenced in a way that gives the episode some structure. But the music itself is just happening in the moment, all of it. And I have no idea what will happen on any given episode. Now, future episodes will have more specific topics than what is the show about. The next episode will be ask the question, is music natural, and explore that in some detail, but again, fully improvised. So that's what the show is about. But as I said, the show has a history, which I'll get into after this. So that was a nocturne. Before I get into the history of the show, what is a nocturne and what's an overture? And these are, as I said, of course, improvised. A nocturne, to me, the first thought is Chopin, Frederick Chopin of Poland, the great piano composer, really an amazing composer without even attaching the word piano to it, even though that's pretty much all he wrote for. But Chopin kind of defined the nocturne for piano for ever since he wrote them in the 1830s or whatever that was. And indeed, it's hard for me not to think of Chopin while I'm playing that, or not to go into a somewhat similar style. But I've found myself over the last couple months or so, when I just sit down and improvise nocturne for this show and in other situations, that I'm finding I'm actually have found my own style of nocturne, which is a good thing. So that's nocturne. Now, I said the show has a history, and the history is it was a podcast. Some of you may have listened to it. It was a just pure audio podcast that ran from 2018 to 2021, basically 2.5 seasons. I looked it up, 47 episodes, which shocked me. Maybe that's why I stopped. That's a lot for one person, a one-man show. I'm operating everything here, the technology, the obviously the playing, and it's a lot, and so I kind of it kind of petered out, to be honest, no pun intended. But the point of the show, Improvisations on the Ledge, as a podcast was pretty much the same. All I did was sit down, turn on my recording software, had my mic set up, and went for it. In that case, I literally just went for it. I had no preset plan whatsoever. There were no titles to the episodes until I recorded them, and then a theme emerged, both musically and narratively, if you will, and I would edit it together and make it a cohesive whole. It was indeed improvised, but had a lot of editing to make it work as a podcast, audio only. And I think in the end, that's why I stopped it. The editing process, I would record for like an hour or so, or 30 minutes to an hour, then edit it together to make it cohesive. Add a teaser at the beginning to kind of get people interested based on whatever I played and talked about during the recording. But the editing took about 10 times as long as the actual recording, and by the end it didn't feel very spontaneous at all. So I tabled it, and with the idea that I would eventually do a live version of it. 4 years later, that's what this is, a live version of that. Now, there's still a lot of prep, a lot of editing. It just happens on the front end, where I put together what you've seen, these images and an order and a general theme for each show. So that's still there, but when I get to perform, when I come here to my studio and everything's set to go, I can just play, no editing. And whatever comes of it, comes of it. So that's what the history of Improvisations on the Ledge is about. It does beg the question, both the podcast and this, why do it? What is the point of this kind of improvisation? I'll talk about that when we return from the next piece of music. And that was a waltz. And again, waltz, all these things mean something, these terms. And of course, they mean different things to different people. Some people are going to think of waltz and they'll immediately say, not played like that, I would think. What is it, Blue Danube by the Strauss brothers. Viennese waltz, and that is indeed an important major waltz style that ruled Vienna and other places in the late 19th century. Of course, there's the ballroom dance waltz, and there's the jazz waltz, which swings. There are many, many, many examples of that, and that's probably what influenced me the most, for me. So when you see waltz, you may think Strauss, or you may think Chopin. He wrote a lot of them. So anyway, getting back to the question of why. Why do this program? Why free improvisation? I mean, there's a point to just about anything that as an artist you do. You have a reason for doing it, and it is perhaps ill-defined in some cases. I know I've done that. But for me, in free improvisation or improvisation in general like this has a deeper purpose than just showing that I could do it, which obviously I can do it. For me, it's about getting back to fundamentals of music making without any tricks of production, auto-tuning, cleaning it up in the edit. What can you say? Can you tell a story in real time with just notes, piano? That's what this is about. Improvisations on the ledge. Getting back to, you need a lot of musical skill to do this, folks. Don't try it at home if you don't have any musical skill. I know there are people out there, I've heard them, who try to do it, and it's not pretty. But there's the skill aspect, but there's also the creativity in the moment, and that's what makes it on the edge. It can, and often will, fall off. And that, too, is where the creativity comes in, because you don't always get what you want playing-wise. You make mistakes, and then you build on those mistakes. You take them and do something with them. They become part of the story, and that forces a kind of creativity that wouldn't be there if you had the chance to plan everything out. And I do a lot of planning, even for this show, as I said, and composing is a kind of frozen improvisation, I believe, as Stravinsky said, and I do a lot of that. But this is my chance to kind of go out on the edge and the ledge and see if I can create something different that I've never done before, because I have no choice. So that's what this is about. Now, I want to, before I play the final piece, explain a little about the overall concept of improvisations on the ledge, because it's not just this show. There, if you go to the website, which should be linked in the description, improvisationsontheledge.com, you will see that there are actually 4 shows. There's this one, which I call the flagship show. There is another one called FreePlay, which I'll be debuting next week. That is me doing my rather interesting interpretations of standard songs from Bach to Beethoven to Beatles. That's all B's. There are other non-B's in there. Coltrane, there's a C, and many more. And I include some of my own songs or compositions in that. So in that one I'll be singing as well as playing, at least for some of the songs. So there's that. That's the number 2. Number 3 is a show that will come in in 3 4 weeks, something like that. It's on the schedule there, on the site, on the schedule page. It is called Peter Saltzman in the Public Domain, and it's me. This one is the least planned. It's just me taking songs like Amazing Grace, anything that is for the most part very well known. It could be from the classical tradition, the folk tradition, patriotic songs, whatever, and just doing my weird interpretations of those. Then the final one, actually the final one, is the least planned. It's called the Improvised Sonata, and in that I improvise a sonata. No talking, no real visual elements, just me improvising a sonata. And the purpose, all of these things have a long history for me that go back several years. The idea of being able to improvise a full sonata first occurred to me when I read about Beethoven doing it and his ability to improvise full sonatas that were as good or better than his written versions, which is saying a lot. And ever since I heard that, read that when I was a teenager, I thought, well, I should be able to do that. No, I didn't actually think I should. I thought I wanted to. It was a lifetime goal. So a lifelong goal. So that's what that's about. So there are 4 different flavors of improvisations on the ledge, and they'll be rotating weekly. So that's coming next week, FreePlay, and then the other 2 in some order I can't remember. So let's conclude with this. Again, stay tuned or go to the website for updates. Also, subscribe to this page, my YouTube live page, so you can hear about updates, and give me a thumbs up too. Why not, if you're so inclined.